Good evening. The Prime Minister's brother has dealt him a severe blow by announcing he's quitting politics, saying he's torn between family loyalty and the national interest. Joe Johnson, who voted Remain, has resigned as a government minister and will also step down as an MP. After losing a series of crucial votes in the Commons over the past 48 hours, Boris Johnson was in Wakefield this afternoon, where he again pledged to leave the EU on the 31st of October. He said he would rather be dead in a ditch than ask for another extension. MPs will be asked to vote again on Monday on an early general election. Labour says it wants to rule out a no-deal Brexit first. Our political editor Laura Koonsberg reports.
You should be in Brussels negotiating.
Yes, we have been negotiating.
You are not. You are in Morley, in Leeds.
He attracts trouble. Moments after he arrived on this Yorkshire high street, the Prime Minister taken to task.
You're playing games.
Well, I think people...
Trouble. Moments after he arrived on this Yorkshire high street, the Prime Minister taken to task.
You're playing games.
What I think people want us to do is to leave the European Union on October 31st.
We all know that.
Well, that's fantastic. That's what we're going to do.
Boris Johnson divides.
He knows this.
You're
speaking.
Searching for support in the crowd that fast emerged.
Do you think we should get out on October the 31st?
But just weeks into his time in office, he's been defeated in Parliament, thrown out some of his MPs. Even his brother quit as a minister in government to spend less time with his family.
It's been an honour to be MP for Orpington and a minister under 3 governments, but it's time to move on and I've got to get to work.
Not much more work as an MP now. Joe Johnson was on a completely different side in the Brexit argument, but had resolved to work for his brother in government. Not anymore. Citing concerns over the Prime Minister's approach, he wrote on Twitter, "In recent weeks I've been torn between family loyalty and the national interest. It's an unresolvable tension. Time for others to take on my roles as MP and Minister. Over and out."
Your brother has quit this afternoon, saying you're not acting in the national interest. What do you say to that? You must be concerned.
I want to thank Joe very much for everything that he's done. He's been a fantastic minister for science and for universities. And I think that, we certainly haven't seen eye to eye for a long time about the UK and the European Union, but on a huge domestic agenda, I think he's done a fantastic job. Of course, I'm very sad to see the loss of Joe and indeed of people who have lost the whip in the last few days.
But that was your decision. I mean, you might be acting ruthlessly, but for some people it's reckless.
Well, I think what people want to see us is us getting on and delivering Brexit, and that's what we're going to do. And it's very, very important to get it done.
You're stuck, aren't you? Because Parliament won't allow you to leave without a deal. They won't right now allow you to get the election that you so desire. You're stuck.
Well, I have to say, I do think it is absolutely unbelievable that the leader of the opposition is currently refusing to have an election. I don't think ever in democratic history has a leader of the opposition refused to have an election.
How will you make it happen?
I think what he should do,
because you're stuck.
What he should do is allow the people to decide. I think people want to come out on October the 31st. That's what they voted for. And I think it's quite incredible that they're now being told that they can't have a say.
How will you bring this country together when what you're doing is throwing people out of your party and trying to force people into an election many people don't want?
The only way to do it is to get Brexit done on October the 31st and take the country forward. Nice to meet you.
Get Brexit done.
He stirred up most of the people he met here today in support of Brexit, it seemed. But could he take everyone with him?
Nice to meet you.
Forget about that.
I want to say a big thank you.
He'd wanted to show off his plans for more police officers, but held a strange,
You know the caution.
at times surreal press conference.
Hang on, let's get this right.
Hesitating, stumbling.
You're right.
One officer almost fainting after waiting for his speech so long.
That is a signal for me actively to wind up.
And the Prime Minister was criticised too for making his Brexit promise, using public servants as a backdrop.
Safe streets.
Again a vow, no delay to Brexit.
I'd rather be dead in a ditch.
So you would resign first, Prime Minister, rather than go and ask for that delay?
Look, I just don't... I really... It costs £1 billion a month. It achieves absolutely nothing. What on earth is the point of further delay? I think it's totally pointless.
It's easy to see why the Tories are tempted. In this part of the world, they can smell opportunity if the election comes.
Some of these areas here where we've got a Conservative presence now, there were strong Leave areas.
Wakefield's Labour right now, but the leader of the Tories on the council reckons the PM's ruthless approach might work.
Do you think being so ruthless, though, might put some voters off?
It's going the other way, though. Actually, people want to see that. I don't know if we call it ruthless, but I think they want to see a decisive Prime Minister. It's Yorkshire. They like that direct approach.
Well, I want an election. I just don't want an election on his terms.
Labour activists don't want their leader to go for a ballot too early.
It's not that I want the Tory government to stay in, or I don't want an election, or I'm worried about an election. It just feels like it's been pushed through on somebody else's agenda.
I want to see him fail on the 31st of October. I want to see that the promises were all false. There was no detail to the negotiations, and he comes away empty-handed. There's got to be an election. It's just a question of time.
Please leave my town.
I will very soon.
Labour MPs right now are keeping him dangling.
We're up for a general election. I want to get rid of this government as soon as possible because I'm really worried about what they're doing to the future of our economy and the future of our country. But it is about timing, and our prime objectives, and we put it in our last manifesto, is we want to prevent a no-deal Brexit because of the damage it could do to the country and the economy.
The thing that Parliament's doing is actually making it impossible for us to negotiate.
On Monday, the Prime Minister will try again to get Parliament to back an election. But the plain fact is, he does not have it in his power to get to the ballot box alone. Laura Koonsberg, BBC News, West Yorkshire.
Well, there have been plenty of other developments today, both here in Westminster and elsewhere. Sir John Major has launched a scathing attack on Boris Johnson. In a speech in Glasgow tonight, the former Conservative Prime Minister said he never thought he'd see such behaviour from any British government and told Mr Johnson to sack his advisers.
We have seen overmighty advisers before. It's a familiar script. It always ends badly. So I offer the Prime Minister some friendly advice. Get rid of these advisers. Get rid of them before they poison the political atmosphere beyond repair. And do it quickly.
Meanwhile, it's emerged today that Boris Johnson warned the Cabinet at the end of August that there was a high chance he would fail to get a new deal with the EU over Brexit. The comments were contained in documents disclosed in a case at the High Court in London, where it's being argued that the Prime Minister's suspension of Parliament is unlawful. The MP, Luciana Berger, has announced that she's joining the Liberal Democrats. The MP for Liverpool Wavertree quit the Labour Party earlier this year and has been sitting as part of the Independent Group for Change. She said her decision to switch allegiance again was to provide a positive alternative to the two main parties. Well, Monday is the next big vote in the House of Commons. If, as expected, the law to block a no-deal Brexit has been passed, MPs will vote again on whether to hold an early general election. The Prime Minister needs the support of 2/3 of MPs to go to the polls. Will he get it this time? Here's our Deputy Political Editor, John Pienaar, on what's likely to happen next.
So where do the rival camps agree? Trust me, this won't take long. All sides want an election to try to break the deadlock, and that's where the agreement ends. The argument now is about timing, and in there, the parties and the factions within parties are trying to thrash out exactly when this election might take place. Down in the Lords, peers are grinding through legislation to ban no deal, maybe force Boris Johnson to go to Brussels and accept another Brexit extension, something he's sworn he'll never do. It could pass into law by Monday, so on Monday in the Commons, the government will try to get approval for an October the 15th election. If they try the same thing as last night, it would need 434 MPs. That's 2/3 of them to say yes. And since last night, it's been clear the government doesn't have the numbers. But Boris Johnson's pledged October the 31st will be the day we leave. So he's goading his opponents. Let the people choose a Prime Minister to decide. Brexit or no Brexit, deal or no deal. And the Commons could say no. Have an election, but only after we extend Brexit. They could defeat the government again. How else to get an election? Well, frankly, it gets messy. Boris Johnson's in office but not in control. His opponents say he's a liar, could get an election and then move the date till after Britain leaves on October the 31st. Other options, they're limited and messy. He could try to pass a law to suspend Parliament's mandatory 5-year term. Only then, Labour, the SNP, the Lib Dems, the whole alliance might try to take control and set a date he doesn't like. Any way Boris Johnson can win? Well, it sounds surreal, but some say the government might try to pass a vote of no confidence in itself. If that leads to paralysis, it could lead to an election to sort it out. Unless it doesn't. Another election could end in deadlock again. You're looking for a clear solution? Sorry, there isn't one.
Well, John is here now, along with our Europe editor, Katya Adler. John, another bumpy day for Boris Johnson.
Yeah, you could say that again. I think it's fair to say that in forcing the pace of Brexit, in trying to look for a quick route to a snap election, Boris Johnson's marched into a maze, and no one in government tonight, as far as I can see a clear way through. His opponents, including the SNP and Labour, look like barring the way to an election until an extension is given to Brexit. Boris Johnson said he will not be the Prime Minister to do that, but nor will he break a law requiring him to do that. So he'll be facing an election on his opponent's terms, not his, unless he can come up with a solution against the odds. And as for his brother, no one can say how much that would have hurt Boris Johnson, personally as well as politically. Today he didn't look comfortable, I think, or confident, but we look as if a no-deal Brexit is very real as a possibility, and the coming election could be vindication or a backfire very, very badly. If it's a cunning plan, there are those, and certainly some of those who are in government and around the Conservative Party, who believe that plan may just need to go back to the drawing board.
Some very vocal protesters, not many of them here tonight, but certainly making their feelings known. Katya Adler, the talk of a general election, does Brussels think that that would change anything?
Well, the idea doesn't really fill them with joy, Sophie. I mean, one EU diplomat put it to me, here we go again. But EU leaders feel they've already engaged with 3 different UK prime ministers since we held our referendum on EU membership. And frankly, they just want to get on with it. But they look over here at the strength of feeling that you're hearing right now. They can read the Brexit opinion polls. They hear the passionate debate in Parliament. They look over the channel and they see a country still really divided. I mean, what do you want from Brexit or a Brexit deal? What do our viewers at home want? Unless the majority of us can agree, or the majority of MPs that we would vote for can agree, then the EU still sees the chances of getting a Brexit deal through Parliament as very bleak. So they continue to game plan for no-deal Brexit, and that will have big effects, particularly on our closest neighbours, no more so than Ireland. The Irish Prime Minister tonight warning that no deal could indeed mean checks on goods close to that border with Northern Ireland.
Katya, John, thank you both. Well, with so much uncertainty, so many unknowns here in Westminster, what do voters around the UK think of the prospect of another election? Our special correspondent Lucy Manning has been to the marginal constituency of Crewe in Cheshire, a Labour seat that would be a target for the Tories, to hear the thoughts of people there.
Crewe and Nantwich, a Leave seat, a marginal seat. If Boris Johnson is aiming his Brexit and election strategy anywhere, it's at the voters here. As the Prime Minister hopes to rebuild his majority, they're making ice cream vans to export across the world. Tommy Francis voted Leave and has always backed Labour.
I'll vote Conservative this time, and it'll probably be the first time in all my family's history, because at this moment in time Boris Johnson's the only person that I can see wants to push through leaving Europe.
Crewe and Nantwich is one of the Conservatives' top target seats, and with Tory fears support is melting away in Scotland and in Remain areas, the Prime Minister needs Labour Leave areas, especially in the Midlands and North, to back his Brexit strategy. Michael Flood voted for the first time ever at the referendum to leave.
It'd be pointless having an election if you wouldn't take my first vote seriously. I voted out and I think we should go out.
So will you be supporting the Prime Minister?
I'll vote him all the way if we leave the EU.
Even Labour Remain voter Emma now just wants Britain to leave.
What do you think of the fact that MPs have blocked the Prime Minister's wish to have an election?
Well, I think it's a bit strange, because I would suspect that the Labour MPs would want to vote for that so that they could get the Labour Prime Minister in place. At the end of October is when we need to be out, we should be out. Just let Boris get on with it.
Table tennis is the Prime Minister's favourite, but MPs have batted away his election plans for now. David Hands is a Labour and Remain supporter.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having another election. It might clear the air a bit and give people a chance to reorganise. I wouldn't particularly vote for Boris Johnson's side because I think their side have landed us with the problem. But the alternatives are equally problematic.
Barbara Shaw is a Tory Remainer.
I think it's just a complete and utter mess. I'm ashamed of our government, really ashamed. I would swap to Labour if it wasn't Corbyn.
If and when an election comes, it's clear some party loyalties will shift to Brexit ones. And that's why the Prime Minister's determination to leave the EU, whatever happens, appears so crucial to winning here. Lucy Manning, BBC News.